the topics. We've got the health perspective and the finance perspective at this table, and that's not by accident. But how do the two relate in this conversation, addressing the whole child and this child well-being?
Well, my perspective is that from the healthcare standpoint, one of the things that the American Academy of Pediatrics has been doing a lot of work on this past year has been child poverty and the concept of toxic stress. Now, there are lots of stress that we experience in our lives. There is manageable daily stress, the things like being on a TV show. There is what's called tolerable stress when something bad happens in your life, but you have people around you to support you, a death in the family, a hurricane, something like that. Toxic stress is where kids are stressed on a daily basis that is unrelenting, and where their families are stressed also. They may not be able to pay their bills. They may not be able to be assured that they're going to be able to feed their kids. What this does is that there's now evidence to show that it's not just a nice thing to help these people. There are actually changes that happen in terms of what genes are turned on and what genes are turned off. And the kids who are in the situation will shut down in ways that their bodies and their minds will be unable to process information. They'll have difficulty learning. They'll have difficulty with their relationships. It can even cause a turn-on, an abnormal turn-on of the immune system, where the immune system will then cause things like asthma, all kinds of other immune problems. So one of the reasons I'm really glad that Ray is here is that there are real economic consequences to this. If we don't take care of these kids, if we don't support these families when these kids are young, to assure that they have relationships that are healthy, that the parents are fully available emotionally to support these kids, what's going to happen is these kids are going to have problems in school. That's going to lead to all kinds of problems down the line with their ability to be good citizens, to be able to have families of their own, and to be able to contribute to society.
You say toxic. I mean, I think of the word like contamination, or you're being poisoned almost. Is that the analogy? Does that carry water there?
I would say that it does. That it is. I certainly can't speak to it from a medical perspective. However, it does in fact impact children's neurobiological development and their functioning, and it harms kids at multiple levels. So yes, I think that we can equate it to when we think about toxins in the environment.
So the financial side of this, what are the stresses that we're talking about?
Well, financial stress causes or contributes to health stress. It actually works both ways. If you are struggling financially, your health is going to struggle. If your health is struggling, you're going to struggle financially as well. If you have health, you have wealth. If you have wealth, you have health. They kind of work together. And so I think what's fascinating is we're starting to understand these connections much better than we used to. And it's a little bit more than just wealth. It's, for many years we focused just on whether or not a family had enough income, did they have a job? And I think what's new in this field is, do they have enough assets, savings, net worth, their debts, their whole balance sheet. And by focusing on their wealth and not just their income, we learned that kids have better outcomes, if there's a focus or if there are some assets in the home.
Does depression come into this conversation? Does that seep into this in a more broad basis?
Absolutely. So when we think about parents can serve as a buffer between the stressors in the home, between the toxic stress, and between outcomes for children. And so a depressed parent parents their child differently than a non-depressed parent. If we think about depression, when it's hard to get out of bed in the morning, when it's hard to do the next thing, it's really hard to be responsive to your children. So you're not able to fully meet the needs of your child, and so that impacts the child's emotional and behavioral health. It impacts the child across multiple domains. They're learning. They're not getting all the cognitive stimulation that they need in order to develop fully. So it's really important that we're able then to support parents, that we treat the depression, but we also know, I will say, that more and more research is showing us that when we help parents in their parenting, that when we intervene around building better relationships with their child, when we intervene to increase their sense of parenting competence, that, okay, I know when a challenge comes up with my child, when I know how to respond to that, I feel better. So we know when we're providing that level of support to parents that we can actually also impact low to moderate levels of depression in parents.
And one of the things that we can do as professionals, whether it's in social work, in finance, or in medicine, is just say to parents, I believe you can do this. And you are the most important person in your child's life. One of the things that we have to appreciate is the role that we are seen in. That we are seen as people with authority, we are seen as people with power. And if I say to you as a parent, you can do this, and your child, there is no one in your child's life who is more important than you. I've had parents say, no, I'm not. And I say, yes, you are. You take care of your child. You bathe him, you clothe him, you feed him. Who else is there? And sometimes even that is just enough. And so it's incumbent on all of us who are professionals dealing with children, not just to say, oh, here's some money, and here's this, and here's that, but to also look them in the eye and say, I really believe that you can do this.
Are they more receptive before a problem starts, so to speak?
Exactly. I mean, I think one of the things we all agree on is that it's important to get these things in place first, to help people realize, and this is, again, the research, the medical research shows that this even goes to the prenatal level, to women when they're pregnant, even before they're pregnant, to make sure their health is as good as possible, that they're in as good a place as possible to be able to be mothers. Because even that can affect the child. So the more that we can do that, frankly, I'd like to, in terms of acute care, I'd like to put myself out of business so I wouldn't have to deal with some of this stuff because kids are healthy to begin with.
And what we're finding in finance is similar to what they're finding in health. Earlier is better. The earlier you read, of course, the better it is for your kid, right? The earlier you get good nutrition, the better for your kid. But the earlier you put assets in the house, the better for the kid too. For example, looking at college and college outcomes, we have evidence that even kids with even very small amounts of savings are 4 to 5 times more likely to go to college than kids without college savings accounts. And what assets do in a house is give kids something called a college-bound identity. It changes their expectations. Their planning horizon extends, and because of that, the parents take more interest in the kids well and plan and think differently about their kids.
And again, this is a conversation that's not directed to one segment of the population, I gather. I'm just thinking about in 2008, a lot of people lost assets.
Absolutely.
Right.
This goes across, this is a conversation for everyone.
Absolutely.
Well, as a matter of fact, the Great Recession wiped out 25 years worth of wealth. We are back to where we were in 1989. All the wealth was wiped out. But there were winners and losers, okay? And among the losers were young families. As a matter of fact, younger families, those in their 20s and 30s, are on a path to have less wealth than their parents or grandparents did at a previous generation. This matters because if these families, today's young parents, don't have as much wealth, they cannot make the same investments in their kids that our parents or our grandparents did.
It's talked about a lot. Is there any data to back up the role that fathers play in this conversation?
Absolutely. Fathers are critical. Having a positive relationship with one's father, whether dad is living in the home or not, with the child, that a positive relationship has been shown to increase children's social and emotional development, their cognitive development, and can then also serve as a protective factor against things like developing disruptive behavior problems, developing conduct problems, and going on to engage in juvenile offending and in other facets. So we know it's really, really important that fathers play a part in children's lives. And from some work that I've done as well as work that others have done, we know that dads want to be involved, absolutely. And they want to be, of course they want to be as a provider. They identify that. We did some interviews and focus groups with dads. They identify that as a very important facet of what they do. But they also want to be in relationship with their children. They want to be seen as nurturer, as teacher. They want to be there for their children. So I love the idea that we're finally thinking about dads more than as a financial provider, but as providing financial support, but also as being a parent, being there, being a nurturer, being a teacher for their kids.